Hello, and I want to welcome
Hello.
you as the viewer watching this video series all about women's empowerment. But the title is what do women say about what does it mean to be a limitless woman? And so I have invited Lillit today to talk about her perspective on that. And before we jump over and introduce Lillit, I just want to introduce myself to you. You may not have been on my site before, so my name is Princella Stringer. I'm an empowerment coach, and I love to create events and videos that I'm hoping will empower you and inspire you to go after the goals that you are hoping to go after. Maybe you've set them on the back burner and it's time to light that fire again, or maybe you have something you're working on and you can use some motivation, and that's what we're here for. So this video series is a very special topic to me. One, I focus on women's empowerment, and two, I love bringing women like Lillit to the video series to talk about their experience. Many, as Lillit is a coach, many women that come to speak, I should say, are coaches. And I'm going to give Lillit the space now to talk about what she does today. And so would you share with us what you do today? And I'm just so honored to have you as a guest today. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Princella. It's so great to be on your show. And oh boy, this is what you do is amazing. Empowering women in today's world. There's so much that we can do. And as a coach, you being a coach, I'm a coach myself. I see there's so much potential out there that is not being tapped into because we limit ourselves. Women in general, but everybody, we tend to find ourselves in that place that we limit ourselves, our own potential, and it's just so sad to see that. So my passion is actually working with people, empowering, elevating, and enriching lives. I do speaking, coaching, and training with individuals in the organizations as well. And my why, my bigger why, is always youth. And let me explain to you how I look at it. My why is youth because I'm a mother first. So I have two beautiful daughters. They're right now 18 and 20. They're my babies, even though they say they're not. You know how they are. They're always babies. They want to establish their independence at this age. And I tell
Yes.
them they're always our babies, but they're also my guinea pigs. So being a leader at home is number one, being leader for our kids. And my passion kind of ignited when I had my first daughter, and I recognized this. I want to be the role model for my daughter then, and then I had my second daughter. I wanted to be the role model of a limitless woman, of a woman that's constantly growing, that's constantly searching to be a better self. And in life, it's not about what we do, it's who we are becoming, and recognizing that we're not perfect. We all are always growing, changing, and always being willing to do that. So my why started then, ignited more so than I've been always wanting to grow and expand. But then I recognize that in our society is I can't just focus on my kids because they're going to be living in a society with others who are not raised the same way. So helping our generations to change and grow, to interrupt that pattern that comes from generation to generation that's not serving us. So that's where my passion has started. So I'm working both with adults and youth at the same time to do this pattern interrupt. That's what I do. I do a lot of mastermind groups, which I bring groups of people together, CEOs, stay-home moms, doesn't matter, men, women, youth, and I help them recognize where they're go deep inside. What is it that's holding them back? And we go through mastermind groups, individual coaching and training in organizations. So that's basically a summary of what I do as far as my leadership training is concerned. I think that answers your question. There's so much more I can say,
Oh,
but
there
that's
is so
pretty much, I
much.
think, taps into, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much. And one of the things that I really loved about you when you and I chatted, actually it's been a couple weeks now, hasn't it? It's been over
Yeah,
a
it
couple
has.
months.
Yeah.
When we first had our first conversation about what you do, where your heart is, and it speaks volumes to me because one of the reasons that I began my journey in learning to become a coach, and then as I was doing my training, I knew I had to step back and peel a few more layers from my
Mm-hmm.
learning and my
Mm-hmm.
development. And but the thing that ignited it was, one, yes, absolutely, when I had my daughter. When I had my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
it caused me to make decisions in my life, to be a better leader and influence in her life. But as
Absolutely.
I felt like God kind of laid out a path for me to follow, in a path that I really had no clue I would be doing today. But the other piece that really ignited me is this part of single motherhood and young motherhood. I was a young mom. I have
Mm-hmm.
almost 29-year-old son that lives in Arizona. We just talked about him a moment ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was a young mom and a single mom when I had him.
Yeah,
And as I went into the coaching arena, I recognized the support that young moms and single moms need, and why, because of
absolutely.
exactly your mission, which is, not all teens and children will have the leader that they need in their home to help them become leaders
Absolutely.
themselves. And so
Absolutely.
that's where my
Yeah,
heart really was, is because that's my history, but that's where it all begins.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Experiencing our experience, and it ignites
Mm-hmm.
this. And this is what I love about what we get to do today, and the awarenesses that have come to us as adults in our professional lives, is to impact other women, to empower them
Mm-hmm.
in that direction. It's a beautiful place to
Yeah,
be in.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's when I say purpose finds you. Purpose finds you through your
Yes.
experience, right? You never thought you would be on this path until purpose found you. And it's so true. It's what we're going to be talking about, being a limitless woman. It's no matter what the situation, you were a single mom for a period of time, and everybody has their different circumstances, yet the journey is pretty much the same. We all want to be good we all want to be good role models, right? We all want to be create that future for our children. That's why I say my statement of my purpose is to help raise healthy children that don't spend the rest of their lives fixing their childhood. You know, we want to
Yes.
raise them right. We want to put that foundation right. So as a mothers, we both are mothers. That's what ignited us, but it's so applicable to everybody else, because leadership, even though if you don't have children, leadership, that's the element of leadership, which is love, compassion, and helping set a good foundation for the future. So
Yes. I
I
love that.
love
You
it.
said that
I
so
love it.
well.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, would you like to share a little bit what brought you to this path and this journey yourself? Share a little bit about what you think Limitless Woman means.
Oh, yeah. When we had our last discussion, and I had a pretty long time to kind of sit in it, but it still goes back to our original discussion, what I shared with you, the very first moment as I thought about Limitless Woman. There's few elements to it that I really believe are so important. And number one is, I think, awareness, having the being mindful and having the self-awareness. As a leadership expert and leadership coach, I do believe in self-leadership, number one. So being a leader, being a woman, being a man, being a father, being a mother, being a leader in a company, doesn't matter. Having the awareness and mindfulness, I think, is the foundation that starts it all. First of all, the self-awareness about ourselves. Where are we in our lives? Where do you want to be at? What are we not doing? We are so habit driven. We are human beings that are habit driven. And we sometimes get on this autopilot that we do the same things over and over again without stopping to reflect and think what kind of an impact is it having on us, on our lives, and lives of those that we're impacting around us. People, we in our society, in human nature, is we impact each other's lives no matter whether we want it or not. And actually, in reality, sociologists came up with a study that even the most introvert people influence at least 10,000 people in their lifetime. So just think
Fascinating.
about it, right? It is just, even though we don't want to impact people, but we are, even though we don't want to influence people. Some people say, I'm an introvert. I just want to be by myself. I don't want to work with people, but we do influence everybody around us. So having that self-awareness, how I communicate, what emotional intelligence, is so important in our society today. And I think it's so lacking in our schools, and our teen and our youngsters don't know how to deal with emotions. They don't know how to process it and how to express it. So that's where I talk about the self-awareness. What do I feel? How am I expressing it? How am I impacting others in my life? Through that self-awareness, we need to learn to stop and reflect, especially in US. I think US is one of the most beautiful countries to live in, so many opportunities, but yet it's one of the busiest countries to live in as well, and we never stop to reflect and think. So that's where it is so important to slow down, take the time, I think, have that awareness of, am I on an autopilot? Am I achieving my full potential? What are my goals? We don't have a lot of clarity a lot of times. We go through life day by day, tasks oriented. We go through doing things we do every single day without stopping to think about it.
Yes.
That's where the very first element, I think, it's self-awareness and mindfulness kind of combined together. And when I speak as a leader, how we're influencing our followers, but then as a parent, how we're influencing our family, our children in our lives, they watch us. They learn from observing us visually, not what we say, but what we do. So having that self-awareness is so important, I believe. I think that's what makes Limitless Woman, because if we are able to stop and recognize and shift that pattern that we used to be in, we're becoming more and more limitless, right? So I think self-awareness would be my very first one that I definitely say that's the foundation. Without the awareness, we cannot change anything.
Yeah.
Without being mindful, we cannot change anything.
I love how you talk about both our role as parents and then our role as leaders when we're
Yeah.
working outside of our
Absolutely.
homes, but in an organization. Men and women, you work with both men and women.
Absolutely.
But the impact that we have as leaders, whether we feel confident in our role or not, I thought that was, I'd never heard that statistic before about introverts, that they still have an impact. You know, it's, in my mind, I'm thinking, of course, but to hear the
10,000
statistic
people.
is,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Incredible, yeah. And
Yeah.
so when we're working for an organization, working somewhere else where you're impacting, doesn't matter if you have a small team or a large team, your behavior influences the culture. It influences what's okay and what's not okay, and sets the tone.
And as a leader, you set the tone. You set the tone, whether it's leader at home or leader in the organization. I always speak in both terms because it's so important. It just breaks my heart sometimes when I speak to people in the networking, during networking events, or somebody introduces me to somebody else. They say, "Oh, I'm not a leader. I'm just a stay-at-home mom, or I'm just a stay-at-home dad." I'm like, no, don't say that word, just, because you are the leader. You are the one who is raising our future society, people, the future generation, right? So leaders are everywhere. We are leaders at home. That's where it starts first. And it's so important to recognize, you're absolutely said it, we are the ones who set the lid for everybody else around us. The more effective leaders we are, the higher the lead for everyone to follow us. We will pull everyone further and higher if we have that self-awareness. We have that leadership level that can help others to grow. And leadership is all about influence. You said it earlier when you did your introduction. It's all about influence. We're influencing people. Constantly, all around, we are influencing people, and the positive influence is the most important, because that's the one that comes from heart, and that's where the love comes in. And I think that's where women are, so many more women are better leaders, because we do have that instinctively. We have that love and compassion. Nothing against men. We need men in our society. We need the synergy that men and women bring together. But I think we're more natural of this type of leadership, because we come with love naturally, more instinctively.
More instinctively, yes. And then the men in our lives as that are leaders, either in the home or outside of the home, of course. The men that are brave enough to show their heart and work with their heart, what their heart and intuition tells
Absolutely.
them, I think is becoming more and more accepted in today's society, which is a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing to observe.
Yep.
But there is still a culture and a stigma, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the pattern interrupt that I'm talking about. That's what we, as individuals, you're doing such a great job bringing that awareness, bringing that topic to so many of your audience. So many coaches are out there that are doing this. The more we plant the seeds, we're creating the bigger movement of taking in the direction that it's going to be normal then. Maybe not this generation, maybe you and I might not see it in this generation, but what we do is going to impact our kids' generation. They're going to see that. We need to plant those seeds, and that's what you're doing so great with this program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, you said something a moment ago that made me think about our audience and people that may be listening today. Sometimes we see things happening in our environment, and or we see someone going through something or saying something that diminishes their power,
Yep.
and we don't say anything. We don't speak up. And you don't
Yeah.
have to be a coach to bring the love out and share the love, you know, with
Yeah.
someone that's having a hard time identifying with their power. So when
Yep.
we can say lovingly to somebody else, no, 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 don't
Yeah.
say that. You're not
Yeah.
just anything,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I just want to encourage, empower others that to do that in love, and it'll be received in love.
Absolutely.
I was
Absolutely.
remembering my daughter told me recently that she did a video, and so I love watching her. She does videos for YouTube, and of course I'm
Oh,
all over them and sharing them. And
runs in the
so
family, right? It's so cute.
yes, yes. So I'm watching her video, and she shares in there how she prays that when she's faced with a situation where she needs to stand up or speak out for someone, that she really prays that she's able to speak out and say something. She says, in my mind right now, talking about it, I think, yeah, I'll do that. But will I really do it
Yeah.
when the time comes? And I just thought it was brilliant of her at the age of 15 to be thinking about this. And so it was a great topic of conversation to have with her as a youth, but then having that conversation with moms and leaders every day, or you know, in series like these and other series. As you said, there are many coaches that are doing similar work, and it is so needed, and the work you do is
Absolutely.
so needed in training our youth to follow that path as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. It's so
So
beautiful. How old is your daughter?
she's 15.
15. So look at the awareness level that she has at 15 already,
Yeah.
right? It takes that awareness level, and that's what I'm talking about. She is already aware of the fact, and she's questioning, will I do it? I know what's the right thing. Will I do it? Because if we don't stop to think and pray like she does, and kind of plan in our head ahead of time, make the decision, what is the value that I'm going to live by? It's never going to change. It's never going to happen. And when you said that speak up, it's so interesting because I run a program at the high school that I called it Speak Up. And I recognize so many youth, and I work with the 9th through 12th graders, basically. Most of them were 10 through 12. And I recognize that besides the fact it was more about helping them learn to be better communicators, better speakers, learning the elements and being more confident speaking in public, but also the second part of that speak up was to speak their opinions, to feel comfortable to speak their opinions and what they think, because nowadays it feels like they don't think their opinions are valued, and they shut themselves down. They don't want to speak up anymore. They don't want to say, and they don't want to stand up. Why is bullying such a big issue in our high schools right now, in any school, in middle school and elementaries too? Because kids are afraid to stand up. They're not thinking, they're not having the courage to stand up and speak up. So that's so
Right.
beautiful of your daughter at that age to have that awareness. And I'm not surprised. Look at the role model she has. So that's awesome. That's beautiful.
Thank you. So speaking of that, who were some influences in your life that kind of set this tone, set this path for you with you as a
Oh,
kid?
this is so interesting. I think I've had great mentors and friends in my life. I do have. One of the greatest mentors in my life is John Maxwell. He's a leadership expert, leadership guru, and I'm certified John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach. His mentorship, his books actually have changed my life. They've changed my life because there's a lot that I recognize in thinking through the process. And that kind of takes me to the second bullet point of a limitless woman that I was thinking is growth, having the growth mindset. I would say, like I said earlier, I've always been curious, reading and studying and exploring. Zig Ziglar is another one, Brian Tracy. Those are the influences in my life that I've always admired and read their books, Robert Rom, and there's so many more I can't think of right now. It's not coming to me. But growth mindset is so important to be able to constantly be curious and learn. And in kids, and I'm always going to take it back to the experiences I'm having with youth, is they're so sick and tired of school, they don't want to learn anymore. It's so hard to help them see that there's more. The learning starts after school. The learning starts after school when you learn the materials, you learn the basics that you need to take out
Right.
into the world. And that's where the experience, that's where the learning starts. So to me, I've had incredible mentors. My parents, number one, they've raised me, they've set the foundation, they've set the tone, and they gave me this seed of curiosity, I guess. God gave us that seed, but they've always, my parents always been reading a lot, learning new things, moving into this country. They've left everything they've had, they've left everything they've owned. They've left the language, they had to learn a new language. So they have been my definitely number one mentors and influencers. And I would say through multiple friends and other mentors, John Maxwell would be my other one, and very close friends of mine. So yeah, definitely.
Yes, wonderful. So you know the power of the influence of the leadership at
Absolutely.
home, and then the impact of a lack of leadership at home. I love what you do.
The lack of leadership at home creates the future generations problems. It really does. Lack of that foundation that is set in the beginning. We've got to set that foundation right, and that's why I always say my purpose is to help raise healthy children that they don't spend the rest of their lives fixing their childhood. Because if we
Yes,
don't set the
so
right
powerful.
foundation, their entire lives they're spending fixing what was
Fixing.
not set there properly. So that's where my passion is. That's why I'm so passionate about working with adults and helping them recognize. And nothing is more satisfactory than receiving an email from a parent thanking me for the mastermind group journey that she's been on, saying that she's such a better parent just going through this journey and having that self-awareness and having recognition. Oh, there's different and better way of doing things,
Right.
right?
You, you
So
know,
yeah,
so it takes the parent to step up and ask for and receive
absolutely.
the help. But what you do is so important. You are changing the trajectory of a generation that has
That's where
been
my
passed down and passed
passion.
down. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. I want to break that pattern. Movement. This is a movement. We need to break that pattern. And you know when that started, that recognition that we need to work on proactive and reactive approach is when I was working with youth. Multiple times I heard this comment over and over, and it just blew my mind. When the teenager was telling me, "But you don't go home and live with my parents." And it was just so powerfully shocking, is because it's so true what we're teaching, what we're showing, how we're opening up the doors, the windows of possibilities for these children. They're still going back and living in that limited environment. So that's where the environment comes into the picture. It's so important, the environment that they're living in, the environment that we are, who we surround ourselves with, right? It's so important who are the influences in our lives. All this time we've been talking with you, how do we influence others? But there are influencers in our lives, like you said, who were my mentors. We need to be really picky and choosy about who we spend time with, because they are
Yes.
imparting on us. They are influencing who we are becoming as well. And that's where that I recognize that we need to be reactive in terms
Yeah.
of working with adults and helping them develop this better way of doing, better way of thinking, better way of raising their children, having that mindful awareness of what we do, what we say on everyday basis impacts our children, impacts as a leaders, impacts our followers. They're watching
Yes.
us. It's not only
Yes.
children. I always kind of talk in terms of children because I'm mother first, but it's you take it into the organization and you tell leaders, followers follow what they do, not what they say, right? So we need to
Right.
be those leaders by example. So, and then that's a reactive approach. Proactive approach is setting that right foundation while they're still young. But we got to do it together. It can't be only
Yes.
one sided.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we first started this conversation, you talked about how you had 3 points to talk about in
Yes.
Limitless Woman. And so I want to make sure we go
Yes.
back to that because you had some really,
Absolutely.
really valuable points. So can you just recap the first two and
Sure.
then the third?
So the first one was awareness and mindfulness. Having that awareness, where am I today? Having that awareness, how would I respond if I was in a situation like that, like your daughter has, right? Having the awareness, where am I? What are the habits that are driving me that are not serving me, right? So awareness, there's so much that goes into that awareness. How am I impacting others? The second one is being willing to grow, having that growth mindset, being curious, being hungry to find a different, a better way of doing it. It's not that the prior generations did it wrong. It's not that we learned things that were wrong, but they were right at that time. Where the times are changing, we're growing, and everybody, our parents and their parents and grandparents and grandparents, they did the best they could with the knowledge they have, with the resources they have, with the upbringing they had. So we got to recognize that it's not that it's been wrong. We got to recognize that we need to change. We need to
Yeah.
move with the times and
That,
shift with that. So having that growth mindset and being
yes.
open to learn new things is so important. That was my second.
Yes, and that really warms
Yes.
my heart that you brought that in, the importance of, if we made mistakes. With my first son, I was 18 when I had him. I certainly made my
Mm-hmm.
share of mistakes, and
Yeah.
so we've got to know that whatever our journey was, I'm so glad you brought that back up, because anybody that's listening and feels a
Mm-hmm.
little tinge in their heart about decisions they've made or the path that they've been walking, it is never too late to continue on that path of growth and
Absolutely.
awareness. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm starting the mastermind group in August, and it's actually on one of John Maxwell's books. And the title is Sometimes We Win, Sometimes We, and a lot of people will say lose, right? But the reality is we learn. It's not
Mm.
lose. And
Ooh,
then we all make mistakes. Nobody wants to think about their mistakes, right? I'm the one, I'm the guilty one too, right? I made a mistake. I failed at something. I just want to put it under the rug and forget about it. But the reality is, we learn from it. That's the process of the life's journey. The success is learning from our mistakes, not putting them under the rug and trying to forget. But we all, my first daughter, we always joke in our household. My younger daughter always jokes. She's like, "This is why she turned out like that." But we always, because that she was my first child. There's no manuals how to raise your children, right? Nobody tells you what's the right or wrong way. You're learning, and the most important thing is compassion, love, and desire to provide the best that we can and be the best that we are, be the best that we can, so they can learn by watching us. By watching
yes,
us. So it's absolutely so important to recognize that in our society, blame is such a big problem. People love to
I
blame
agree.
and find somebody whose fault it is because they don't want to take responsibility. It's not about that. It's about
Right.
learning what we had in the past. We can't change the past. We can't predict the future. All we can do is work on ourselves and work on today. We can be
Mm-hmm.
the best version of ourselves today. Tomorrow will be definitely better.
Beautiful.
So that's what I really believe, and that's what I aspire to teach everyone, is just recognize it's okay. We all made mistakes. Even the most successful people, they all made mistakes. They all failed at something at some point in their lives. Look at
Yes.
Thomas Edison. How many times he failed before he came up with the light bulb, and then look at how we live today. The light is all over. We have two light bulbs right now turned here, right? But we all fail at something. Remembering to not judge ourselves, I think, is the key important factor right there.
Absolutely. So tell us about your third point.
So the third bullet point that I always talk about as being a limitless woman or a limitless leader, I would say it's action. Action, action. Even though I said the self awareness is the most important, it's the foundation, and it clearly is, because without having that, we can't move anywhere. But
Yes.
without action, nothing will change. And we need to create that change, and to change our generational upbringing and some things that are not working anymore requires action. And we
Yes.
are such a habitual creatures. If we don't intentionally take steps, if we don't intentionally take action, nothing will change. So having the self-awareness is important foundation. Having the growth mindset, learning and being curious and hungry to learn the better ways of doing, to learn the better ways of being is so important. But if we don't implement it and don't take action, it's not, nothing is going to change. And that's why I always say knowledge without experience is useless, but experience without knowledge is insanity. And as you probably heard Albert Einstein's quote, he said, insanity is doing same things over and over again, yet expecting different results. And it goes back to, we cannot change our lives if we don't change ourselves. If we don't change our beliefs, which lead to what we think, which lead to what we do, to our behavior. So action is so important. And we talk about in terms of limitless women, but also limitless leaders in our lives. So
I could not
that's
agree more.
my third bullet point.
And the way that circles right back around is circling right back to the awareness. Yeah, beautiful. That's awesome.
We need to learn, we need to relearn and unlearn certain things, because there's definitely things in our lives that we learn that are not serving us. So it's kind of a cycle. When you say circle back, absolutely, it's having that self-awareness. What do we need to unlearn in our life? What is not serving us anymore? So then learning new ways of doing it, and then putting into action, failing, succeeding, whatever it takes, and then going back again in that self-awareness. What did that help me learn? How did that help me change? And let's go through that cycle again. So absolutely, it's like a cycle that we're constantly need to be going through.
Right, right. And, we can never hear that enough on how important that cycle of going through the learning and growing and failing and learning and growing again and again is just simply a part of the process. And we can take our ego out of it. It's just a part of the process.
Yeah,
So.
but it's a choice we have to make. It's a choice we have to make, because it's so much easier to live in the comfort of a life, especially in US, on an average household. There's a certain comfort that we get stuck into, but we're not growing. We're not moving outside of it, even though some people are wishing that they were more successful. But it's a choice. If we don't make that choice intentionally, and that's what makes it Limitless Woman, making that choice and being constantly intentional about it. And I think that's kind of the way I was looking at it, that's the umbrella of it all. We need to make that choice. The Limitless Woman is choosing to take the hard path, not the easy path.
Yes, so true. I got a little chuckle when you said wishing. I mean, yes, if we could just sit here with our little genie bottle and wish it to life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. My mentor, John Maxwell, always says nothing worthwhile is easy.
Yes.
Right? Nothing worthwhile is easy. And having 1000%. A life that we are designed to live, the potential, it's not going to be easy. Life is not designed to be easy. But we have I see people who get stuck in that complacency. They have what they want. It's materialism and complacency, and they're not growing. Yet they're wishing for better life, but they're not achieving their full potential. And it's an uphill journey. It's not an easy journey, but it's all worthwhile, because at the end of the road, when we leave this planet, we're going to leave what we have accomplished, who have we become, and how many people we have influenced positively. Everything else stays here on this planet. So that's not an easy journey, but it's a choice. Like I said, again, it's a choice we have to make. It's not easy to unlearn things. It's not easy to constantly spend reading and learning, and look what you're doing, creating these videos for everyone to be exposed to and recognize that I can be better, I can do better, but I need to make that choice and stick with it.
That choice. Yes, and stick with it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a wonderful conversation, and we could have like 3 more episodes with the topics that we covered today, I think.
Absolutely. And I just want to quickly add on one thing, is what I've seen through people that I work with and I coach, and through my masterminds, individual group coaching. Stick with it. When I said stick with it, just know there will be days when you're not going to succeed. Just know there will be days that you're going to fall back into your old habits. It's okay. It's okay. That's where we have to remember why I'm sharing this, because I've been the worst judge of myself for lives. I've been and I call myself recovering perfectionist, which there's no such thing anymore. But we judge ourselves a lot of times. And the minute you find yourself that you made the choice, but it's not working, it's not changing yet, keep up, keep up at it. Don't give up. Just keep going. Don't stop, because we've built these habits for years. Don't think that it's going to change overnight. I think if I would want to leave everyone with something, this is what I would want to say. You've made that choice, stick with it, because it will impact every single day. Baby steps, small changes that you make every single day will have a bigger cumulative impact a year down the road, as long as you stick with it, as long as you stick with it. So that's what I want to leave everyone with, because I know it from my experience. There were days that I would judge myself. I'm done. It's not working. I fell off the horse and I'm not getting back up on it. Don't do that. And that if you consistently get up and keep moving and keep making those tweaks, tiny, tiny, tiny tweaks, adjustments, it will work.
Yeah,
and I promise
beautiful.
that.
That's wonderful. You know, when you were saying that, I've never said this before in this video series, but I literally got goosebumps on my arms. I felt like somebody needed to receive that and hear that today. And I don't say that lightly. So if that's you, I hope you reach out to continue the conversation with Lillit or myself, and leave a comment on how if this video was inspiring to you. Share this video if this was inspiring to you. We're so blessed to have Lillit come and talk and have this conversation today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Princella. Such a pleasure and blessing to be talking to you, and what you do to impact and add value to so many, to countless. It's going to have a multiplying impact forever, for centuries. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.